The unexpected invitation. The message that changed everything. Colonel Marcus Reed stared at the holographic display floating above his desk, its alien symbols slowly translating into English through the quantum communication array. 3 months had passed since first contact, and Earth was still adjusting to the reality that we weren't alone in the universe. The message before him, however, was unlike anything the diplomatic corps had received. "Sir, you need to see this," Lieutenant Emma Foster called from across the command center at Cheyenne Mountain. Her voice carried that particular tone that meant either very good news or very bad news. Marcus rubbed his tired eyes and walked over to her station. The past weeks had been a blur of alien languages, cultural exchanges, and enough bureaucratic red tape to strangle a small planet. As Earth's primary military liaison with the Galactic Testing Council, he'd become the unofficial translator between human pragmatism and alien formality. An ancient tradition. The hologram shifted, revealing the imposing figure of Counselor Threnix, a tall, crystalline being whose species had been running galactic affairs for over 10,000 years. His voice resonated through the speakers with the weight of eons. "Greetings, Colonel Reed. The Galactic Testing Council extends an unprecedented invitation to the human species. For 12 millennia, we have conducted the trial of adaptive survival to determine which species possess the qualities necessary for advanced galactic citizenship." Marcus felt his stomach drop. In his experience, when aliens used words like trial and survival in the same sentence, it rarely ended well for humans. Threnix continued, his crystalline features shifting colors as he spoke. "This trial has been completed by over 300 species throughout our galaxy's history. It serves as both assessment and initiation into higher levels of galactic cooperation. Your species' recent, creative solutions to first contact protocols have intrigued our scientists." The colonel remembered those creative solutions. When the aliens had first arrived with their formal diplomatic procedures, humans had responded by sending a playlist of Earth's greatest hits, a collection of memes, and detailed instructions for making pizza. Apparently, this had been more effective than traditional diplomatic channels. The challenge explained. Lieutenant Foster pulled up additional data streams. "Sir, I've been analyzing their transmission. This isn't just some academic exercise. Every species that's passed this trial has received access to advanced technologies, trade agreements, and protection under galactic law." Marcus nodded grimly. "And the ones that failed? They remain under observation status. Limited contact, restricted technology sharing, basically second-class galactic citizenship." The hologram shifted again, showing images of a barren, hostile world. Counselor Threnix's voice took on a more formal tone. "The trial takes place on Zirion 7, a world designed to test adaptability, resourcefulness, and survival instinct. Participants are provided with basic environmental suits and minimal supplies. The challenge is to survive for 30 planetary rotations while demonstrating the qualities we seek in galactic citizens." Marcus studied the planetary data scrolling past the image. Zirion 7 wasn't just hostile, it was actively trying to kill anything that landed on it. Extreme temperature variations, toxic atmosphere, predatory wildlife, and geological instability made it a nightmare scenario for any survival expert. Human skepticism meets alien confidence. "What makes them think we'll accept?" Foster asked, echoing Marcus's thoughts. Before he could respond, Threnix addressed the question as if he'd heard it. "We understand human curiosity and competitive nature from our observations. Additionally, your species' unique approach to problem-solving has created considerable interest among our scientific community. Several counselors have expressed skepticism about human capabilities." Marcus almost smiled at that. Nothing motivated humans quite like being told they probably couldn't do something. The transmission continued with technical specifications, rules, and procedures that would make a tax lawyer weep. But the core message was simple: humanity had been invited to prove itself worthy of full galactic citizenship by surviving on a planet that had been specifically designed to be unsurvivable. The weight of decision. As the transmission ended, Marcus found himself staring at the now empty air where the hologram had been. The decision would ultimately come from higher up the chain of command, but his recommendation would carry significant weight. Foster broke the silence. "Sir, what are you thinking?" Marcus turned to look out the reinforced windows at the Colorado mountains beyond. Somewhere up there, alien ships waited for humanity's answer. The logical response would be to decline politely, maybe negotiate for a less deadly version of the trial. But Marcus Reed hadn't become a colonel by taking the safe path. And more importantly, he knew his species. Humans had survived ice ages, wars, plagues, and countless other catastrophes not because they followed the rules, but because they rewrote them when necessary. "I'm thinking," he said slowly, "that the Galactic Testing Council has no idea what they've just asked for." He turned back to Foster with a grin that had preceded some of his best and worst decisions. "Start drafting our acceptance letter. And get me a secure line to Earth Command. We're going to need our very best people for this." The die was cast. Humanity was about to enter a game designed by aliens, governed by alien rules, and judged by alien standards. What could possibly go wrong? The rules of the game. Meeting the expert. Dr. Benjamin Torres had seen some strange briefing rooms in his 20-year career, but nothing quite like this. The underground facility buzzed with activity as Earth's finest scientists, military personnel, and survival experts gathered to hear about humanity's latest challenge. Ben adjusted his glasses and reviewed the preliminary data on his tablet, his mind already racing through the implications. "Ladies and gentlemen," Colonel Reed's voice cut through the chatter, "meet Dr. Benjamin Torres, our lead xenobiologist and the man who's going to help us understand exactly what we're walking into." Ben stood, feeling the weight of dozens of eyes on him. At 45, he'd spent most of his career studying extremophile organisms and theoretical alien life. Now, faced with actual aliens and their deadly trial, his academic knowledge was about to get a very practical test. The planet of challenges. "Zirian 7 isn't just hostile," Ben began, activating the holographic display. "It's systematically hostile. Every environmental factor has been carefully calibrated to test different aspects of survival instinct and adaptability." The planet rotated slowly in the air before them, its surface a patchwork of deadly biomes. The atmosphere is roughly 60% nitrogen, 30% carbon dioxide, with trace amounts of compounds that would be toxic to most carbon-based life forms. The environmental suits they're providing will handle basic life support, but they're not designed for long-term survival. Captain Sarah Mitchell, the mission's designated team leader, leaned forward. "What about the wildlife?" Ben's expression darkened. "That's where things get interesting. The Galactic Council has introduced species from dozens of worlds, creating an ecosystem that doesn't exist anywhere else in nature. Predators that hunt by electromagnetic signature, plant life that can detect and respond to stress hormones, weather patterns that seem to shift based on the behavior of whoever's being observed. Alien expectations versus human reality." Lieutenant Foster raised her hand. "Dr. Torres, what have other species typically done to survive this trial?" Ben pulled up historical data, showing success patterns from previous trials. Most species follow predictable patterns. They find shelter, establish a secure perimeter, ration their supplies carefully, and try to wait out the 30 rotations without taking unnecessary risks. "Boring," muttered Sergeant Rick Dalton from the back of the room. Ben smiled despite himself. "Exactly what I was thinking, Sergeant. The alien observers are used to methodical, conservative approaches. They expect participants to follow logical survival protocols and demonstrate discipline under pressure." Colonel Reed stepped forward. "And that's exactly why we're going to have an advantage. Dr. Torres, explain what you've discovered about their monitoring systems." Ben's eyes lit up with excitement. "This is the fascinating part. The Galactic Council uses predictive algorithms to assess participant behavior. These systems have been refined over 12,000 years of trials, but they're based entirely on how other alien species think and react. He manipulated the display to show complex behavioral prediction models. Every previous species has approached survival in fundamentally similar ways. Establish hierarchy, conserve resources, minimize risk, maintain social order. The monitoring AI has learned to predict and evaluate based on these patterns. The flaw in the system. Dr. Elena Vasquez, the team's engineer and Sergeant Luna's older sister, spoke up. What happens when a species doesn't fit their behavioral models? That's the million-dollar question, Ben replied. Their systems are designed to categorize and rate survival strategies, but what if we employ strategies they've never seen before? What if we do things that their algorithms can't predict or properly evaluate? The room fell silent as the implications sank in. They weren't just being asked to survive, they were being judged by a system that had never encountered human creativity, stubbornness, and tendency to completely ignore conventional wisdom. Ben continued, warming to his subject. Humans have a unique approach to problem solving. We don't just adapt to our environment, we adapt our environment to us. We turn obstacles into tools, dangers into opportunities. Most importantly, we cooperate in ways that apparently other species don't. Preparing for the impossible. Colonel Reed nodded approvingly. Dr. Torres has identified several key advantages we have. First, human pack bonding and cooperation extends beyond immediate family or tribal groups. Second, our tool-making instincts are apparently more developed than typical. And third, we have what he calls constructive paranoia. Ben laughed. That's my technical term for the human tendency to prepare for problems that don't exist yet. Most species respond to immediate threats. Humans spend enormous amounts of time and energy preparing for hypothetical future problems. Sergeant Dalton raised his hand. Doc, you're saying their monitoring system can't handle human weirdness? I'm saying their monitoring system has never had to handle a species that looks at a survival trial and immediately starts planning how to turn it into a comfortable living situation, Ben replied. They expect participants to endure hardship and demonstrate resilience. They're not prepared for participants who eliminate the hardship entirely. The strategy takes shape. Captain Mitchell stood up, her tactical mind already working. So our strategy isn't just to survive their trial. It's to survive it in such a uniquely human way that their evaluation systems can't properly categorize what we're doing. Exactly, Ben confirmed. Every other species has played their game by their rules. We're going to play their game by human rules, and their systems won't know how to score it. Colonel Reed addressed the room. This is bigger than just passing their test. If we can demonstrate that their evaluation methods are flawed, it changes how they view other species, future trials, and possibly the entire structure of galactic citizenship. Ben looked around the room at the assembled team. Military personnel, scientists, engineers, and survival experts, all united by that particularly human combination of curiosity, competitiveness, and complete inability to leave well enough alone. There's one more thing, Ben added quietly. According to my analysis of their historical data, the Galactic Council has never had a species completely redefine what success looks like during a trial. They've had spectacular failures and textbook successes, but never anything that made them question the trial itself. The room buzzed with excited conversation as the team began to grasp the full scope of what they were attempting. This wasn't just about proving human worth, it was about proving that human thinking could improve systems that had remained unchanged for millennia. Any questions? Ben asked. Sergeant Dalton grinned. Yeah, document. When do we leave? Because this sounds like the most fun I'm going to have in years. Breaking convention. First steps on an alien world. Sergeant Luna Vasquez felt the artificial gravity of the transport ship fade as they entered Zirion 7's atmosphere. Through the viewport, the planet looked like something from a nightmare, swirling toxic clouds, jagged mountain ranges, and an ominous red sun that cast everything in a hellish glow. But Luna wasn't thinking about the danger, she was thinking about possibilities. "Touchdown in 30 seconds, announced the Krillian pilot, its insectoid features impossible to read. Environmental suits are rated for 48-hour cycles. Supply cache contains standard survival rations for 7 rotations. Extraction point will be marked upon successful completion." Luna checked her gear one final time. Unlike her teammates who carried standard survival equipment, her pack was filled with what looked like junk, broken electronics, spare parts, random tools that had somehow passed the equipment inspection. The alien observers probably thought she was inexperienced or nervous. They had no idea what was coming. The Watchers above. High above the planet's surface, the observation deck of the Galactic Council's monitoring station hummed with activity. Counselor Threenix stood before a wall of displays, each showing different biometric readings, behavioral analyses, and predictive models for the human team. "Initial deployment successful," reported Junior Analyst Zyvan, her blue-scaled fingers dancing across control interfaces. "All 5 humans are conscious, mobile, and appear to be following standard post-landing protocols." Threenix nodded, his crystalline form shifting to a satisfied amber hue. "Excellent. Run the standard behavioral prediction matrix. I want to know how long they'll last before requesting extraction." The analysis computer, an AI system refined over thousands of trials, began processing human behavioral data. Within moments, predictions appeared on screen: estimated survival duration, 12 to 15 rotations. Probability of early extraction request, 73%. Behavioral classification, standard pack survival with moderate tool adaptation. "Typical," murmured Counselor Vex from across the room. "Another species following predictable patterns." But down on the planet's surface, Luna Vasquez was about to prove those predictions catastrophically wrong. Innovation under pressure. The first thing Luna noticed after landing wasn't the hostile environment or the alien landscape. It was the electromagnetic interference that made their communication equipment nearly useless and the way the toxic atmosphere created static buildup on their suits. While her teammates secured the landing zone and began inventory procedures, Luna was already disassembling her broken electronics. To any observer, it looked like stress-induced fidgeting. In reality, she was building something that shouldn't have been possible with their limited supplies. "Luna, what are you doing?" asked Dr. Torres, watching her spread components across a flat rock. "Signal booster," she replied without looking up, her hands working with practiced efficiency. "The electromagnetic interference isn't random. It's following patterns based on the planet's magnetic field fluctuations. If I can build a resonance amplifier using these old radio parts and that damaged tablet, we can actually use the interference to enhance our communications instead of blocking them." Dr. Torres stared at her. "That's theoretically impossible with our equipment limitations." Luna grinned, connecting 2 components that definitely weren't designed to work together. "Only if you follow the manufacturer's recommendations." The observer's confusion. On the monitoring station, alarms began sounding. Junior Analyst Zyvan stared at her readings in confusion. "Sir, I'm getting impossible data from the human landing zone. Subject designated Luna 7 appears to be building something. But according to our inventory scans, she doesn't have the necessary components." Counselor Threenix moved closer to examine the readouts. "Define building something." "That's just it, sir. The analysis computer can't define it. It's registering tool creation, but the behavioral matrices don't have a category for whatever this is." On the main display, Luna's improvised device suddenly came to life, establishing communication not just between team members, but somehow boosting their signal strength beyond what their original equipment could have achieved. The AI analysis system began displaying error messages. Unknown behavioral pattern detected. Reclassification failed. Behavioral prediction algorithm experiencing recursive errors. Expanding the impossible. Luna's communications breakthrough was just the beginning. While other species had historically focused on finding shelter and conserving resources, the human team began transforming their environment with an efficiency that baffled their observers. Dr. Torres, inspired by Luna's success, started analyzing the local plant life and discovered that several toxic species could be processed into useful compounds using nothing but heat, pressure, and chemical reactions that required no advanced equipment. Captain Mitchell established what looked like standard defensive positions, but Luna helped her modify them into multifunctional structures that provided shelter, resource processing, and early warning systems simultaneously. Sergeant Dalton, meanwhile, had been studying the predatory creatures and realized their hunting patterns could be manipulated to actually protect the human camp instead of threatening it. System overload begins. Back on the monitoring station, chaos was spreading through the analysis department. "Sir," Zyvan reported, her voice strained, "the behavioral prediction system is experiencing cascade failures. It keeps trying to categorize human activities, but every classification attempt generates new contradictions." Threenix watched the displays with growing alarm. "Explain." "The humans appear to be following survival protocols, but they're simultaneously engaging in construction, research, diplomacy with local wildlife, resource development, and what our systems are classifying as recreational engineering. The AI doesn't understand how a species can be surviving and thriving at the same time." On screen, Luna was teaching Dr. Torres how to modify their food preparation equipment to also function as a water purification system, atmospheric analyzer, and primitive manufacturing device. It was a level of adaptive tool use that the monitoring systems had never encountered. The pattern that broke the rules. Counselor Vex joined them at the main display. Are they treating this trial as a construction project?" Threenix's crystalline form shifted through several confused color patterns. "That's impossible. This is a survival trial. Participants are supposed to endure hardship, not eliminate it." But that's exactly what the humans were doing. Each challenge the planet presented was being systematically analyzed, understood, and converted into an advantage. The toxic atmosphere became a resource for chemical processing. The electromagnetic interference became a tool for enhanced communications. The hostile wildlife became an early warning system and perimeter defense. "Sir," Zyvan said quietly, "I don't think they understand that they're supposed to just survive this trial." Threenix watched Luna help her teammates install what appeared to be a rudimentary but functional manufacturing facility built entirely from salvaged materials and local resources. "No," he said slowly, "I think they understand perfectly. They just don't care." The system overload. The captain's realization. Captain James Mitchell stood at the edge of what had once been a barren landing zone and was now something that defied classification. In just 10 planetary rotations, his team had transformed their corner of Zirion 7 into something that looked less like a survival camp and more like a thriving research outpost. "Status report," he called to his team, though at this point it felt more like checking in with department heads than commanding a survival mission. Dr. Torres looked up from his improvised laboratory, where he was processing local minerals into useful compounds. "The atmospheric processor Luna built is working beyond expectations. We're not just breathing safely, we're actually improving the local air quality in a 3-kilometer radius." Luna herself was perched atop what she cheerfully called the Impossible Tower, a communications and observation structure that she'd built using principles that shouldn't have worked with their available materials. "All systems green, Captain. And I've got something interesting on the long-range sensors." The ripple effect. What Captain Mitchell was seeing wasn't just human ingenuity at work, it was the systematic application of human problem-solving to an environment designed to resist problem-solving. Every challenge the planet presented had been met not with endurance, but with innovation. Sergeant Dalton approached, leading what appeared to be a pack of the local predators. "Morning, Cap. The night shift worked out great. Turns out these guys are actually pretty friendly once you figure out their communication patterns." Mitchell stared at the creatures that were supposed to be hunting them but were now apparently working security detail. Dalton, please tell me you didn't domesticate the wildlife. Domesticate? Dalton grinned. Nah, we just reached a mutual understanding. They keep the really dangerous stuff away from our perimeter, and Luna's processors make this mineral supplement they love. Win-win. Monitoring Station Crisis. 3 levels above the planet's surface, the Galactic Council's monitoring station was experiencing what could only be described as a complete analytical breakdown. Sir, the prediction algorithms have stopped functioning entirely, Junior Analyst Zyvan reported, her voice tight with stress. The system keeps trying to classify human behavior, but every category it creates immediately becomes obsolete. Counselor Threenix had been standing at the observation deck for the past 6 hours, watching displays that made less sense with each passing moment. Show me the resource utilization analysis. That's part of the problem, sir. According to our calculations, the humans should have exhausted their supplies 3 rotations ago. Instead, their resource availability appears to be increasing exponentially. On the main display, Luna was demonstrating to Dr. Torres how their waste recycling system had been modified to produce building materials, advanced electronics, and what appeared to be luxury food items. Counselor Vex joined them, his normally composed demeanor showing cracks of confusion. Are we certain they're still operating under trial conditions? This looks more like a colonization effort. The impossible architecture. Senior Analyst Korath, called in as an emergency consultant, studied the human settlement with the expertise of someone who had observed thousands of survival trials. His conclusion was disturbing. Counselors, I need to report something unprecedented. The humans aren't just surviving the trial conditions, they're improving them. Look at these atmospheric readings around their settlement. The displays showed environmental data that seemed impossible. Air quality was better than baseline. Soil composition was becoming more fertile. Local wildlife populations were increasing and showing improved health markers. They're terraforming, Korath said quietly. In the middle of a survival trial, using nothing but standard equipment and local resources, they're actually terraforming the planet. Threenix's crystalline form flickered through color patterns indicating severe confusion. That's impossible. Terraforming requires massive industrial infrastructure, environmental engineering equipment, decades of coordinated effort. Yes, sir. It should be impossible. But look at Sector 7. The display focused on an area where Luna and Dr. Torres had established what they called the Botanical Research Station. What had been toxic, barren ground was now supporting Earth plants that shouldn't have been able to survive in Zirion 7's environment. The breaking point. Captain Mitchell was reviewing the day's progress when Luna called down from her tower. Captain, you might want to see this. I'm picking up some unusual activity from the orbital monitoring station. Mitchell climbed up to join her, looking out at the settlement they'd built. It occurred to him that they'd stopped thinking of this as a trial somewhere around day 6. Now it felt more like home. What kind of activity? Emergency communication bursts, system diagnostic routines running continuously, and what looks like panic algorithms. Luna frowned at her displays. Cap, I think we broke something. Through Luna's enhanced communication system, they began picking up fragments of conversation from the monitoring station. What they heard confirmed Luna's assessment. Prediction matrices are completely non-functional. Requesting emergency consultation from the core worlds. Possibility that we need to redesign the entire trial structure. The moment of truth. Dr. Torres joined them on the observation platform, bringing data tablets filled with his research. James, Luna, I've been analyzing the patterns in their monitoring signals. I don't think they know how to evaluate what we're doing. What do you mean? Mitchell asked. Every other species that's taken this trial has played by the rules they didn't even know existed. Survive, endure, demonstrate resilience under pressure. But we've been playing a completely different game. Luna nodded slowly. We've been treating this like a problem to solve instead of a hardship to endure. Exactly. And their evaluation systems are designed around the assumption that survival and suffering go hand in hand. They can't measure success when the suffering has been eliminated. Mitchell looked out at their settlement, where Sergeant Dalton was teaching local wildlife to operate simple tools while Dr. Torres's botanical experiments created an ever-expanding oasis of habitability. So what happens now? Luna asked. Before anyone could answer, their communication system crackled to life with an incoming transmission from the monitoring station. Counselor Threnix's voice carried undertones they'd never heard before: uncertainty, confusion, and what might have been fear. Human team, this is Galactic Council Monitoring Station. We need to discuss some irregularities in your trial performance. Please prepare for immediate consultation. Captain Mitchell looked at his team, all of whom had stopped what they were doing to listen. He thought about the settlement they'd built, the problems they'd solved, and the rules they'd accidentally rewritten. Well, he said finally, I guess it's time to find out what happens when humans show up to someone else's game. The trial was about to end, but Captain Mitchell had the distinct feeling that the real test was just beginning.